All right, fantastic. Welcome to the inaugural episode of Curious Faith. So glad that you are joining us. This is the very first podcast episode that we have done. And so we're super excited just about the conversation we're going to have, but we really are honestly excited about some of the feedback you can give us on this as well. So please chime in and let us know just what you thought of this, because we're going to do this again, and we're going to make you guys listen to it again. So you might as well, make it a better product as we go along. If I haven't met you, I'm Bill Wallace. I'm a pastor here in the Pacific Northwest. Some of the things that I love are Star Wars. I love the Sonics. It saddens me that they're no longer our team. And I really do love talking about Jesus. I love talking about Jesus with all kinds of different people, and that's what we wanted to do this podcast for. So I dragged in a couple of friends today, and we are going to have a conversation that we think people are curious about when it comes to faith. So let me introduce my friend to my right. That is
Mike. My turn to talk.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Mike May. Like Bill, I'm a pastor. I work in Lake Stevens. I don't know how much you're going to talk about me. Spoiler, I'm retired military, got a wife, 3 kids off college and beyond.
Yes,
I didn't even really think about it, I guess,
know.
but
Right,
yeah.
come on now.
So my 2 favorite teams every week are the Broncos and whoever's playing the Raiders. And it's actually, since the Broncos are so horrible this year, now I'm mostly rooting for whoever's playing the Raiders.
Yeah. That's good. That's super helpful. That's perfect. Yeah, it's good. Excellent. And then sitting to my left, my good friend
Keith Gustafson, and I'm also a pastor, but I've worked most of my life in the Democratic Republic of Congo. I am married, we have 3 sons and 3 granddaughters, and I'm not a sports fan, so I can't enter that conversation.
That's great. For those of you that are watching us as a video, you see that it is still during the time of COVID, and we are super thankful that Keith feels totally comfortable wearing his mask. Mike and I have kind of been in a bubble together. We actually see each other with some regularity, and so we were comfortable being able to be without masks. But haven't seen Keith. I haven't seen Keith in person for 8 months, 9 months. Mm-hmm. About that long. So thank you for joining us and being a part of this. We're really glad you're able to do that. So one of the things that we try to do just in the ministry that we're a part of here is we try and let people know that it's always important to ask questions, that Jesus welcomed questions, that he thinks that people really seem to grow, not just by having the answers hammered into them, but by asking questions and then Jesus asking questions back. And so we wanted to do that. And we want to do that around some topics that we think are just kind of challenging for people in our day. People that either would consider themselves Christians and maybe then, would secretly, quietly still have a few questions about that they might be able to be brave enough to ask. Or in particular, people, that have given up on Christianity. People that maybe grew up in the church or spent some time in a church and just for a variety of reasons, decided that they couldn't be a part of that anymore. We really are curious about you, and we want to talk about some of those topics that we think maybe you've been curious about as well. So I wanted to dive in with one that hopefully is a little bit timely. How political should Christians be? Go. No, we thought with everything that's kind of going on around us and the world around us, that seems to be one that's just weighing on people. And again, people new to the faith or just out of the faith, they all seem to have an opinion on that, about the level of politics, how political Christians should or should not be. And so we thought, well, maybe we'd be able to model a conversation that looked at that question, probably ask some more questions, and maybe we'll get to a few answers, but I'm not sure that's the most important part either. So wanted to begin just with that and actually kind of ask from an outset, could we even agree that Christians should vote? Would that be a safe place to start?
I would reluctantly say yes.
All right.
I didn't vote for a number of years. I think I've mentioned to you in the past, I'm extremely dissatisfied with the 2-party system.
As I think many people in America are.
Right. Right. And so my solution for a while was just not voting. Mm-hmm. And I really wished that more people would not vote. I had imagined, at least at one point, that if we got to a high enough level, if 90% of the people didn't vote some year, then people would freak out. But eventually I gave up on that.
I like your thinking, yeah, that actually would drive then a change.
Yeah,
within
and
the
there's, I mean,
process.
there's the impression of people are just lazy, they're uninterested, no, I think a whole lot of people are just dissatisfied, just sick and getting sicker. But I guess I kind of had to concede that, but I think we're being perceived as lazy. So now I've gone to just voting for, I was going to write Kanye in this year, and I did not.
Right.
I think I went with a libertarian. So yeah, doing something other than even though you're throwing away your vote, it's mine to throw away. So yeah, I'd love to just say flat, yes, Christians should vote, but to be honest, it's taken me a while to get to there. I'm kind of reluctant to that.
Cool. All right. Keith?
We'll hear from you too, right?
Yeah, no, I just host this.
Well, right away, this discussion went a little differently than I expected. I would encourage Christians to vote. Should, I don't want to make people...
Right, should's always a weird word for Christians, isn't it? Yeah,
but I think it's a part of being in our culture, being in our country, trying to figure out how things work, how things might work better. As Christians, we don't have ultimate hope in any political leader. Even if you got your ideal candidate, you couldn't trust him or her. And so, but I would encourage us to be a part of our communities, part of the process of leading in our area.
So actually, that's a great question to follow up on before we get to me. I promise we will. Yeah, do you see it more as a leadership opportunity within society, that if Christians do that, that there's an opportunity to help lead?
Yeah, but I'd say I just want to be a part of the people I live with.
I get. Oh, yeah.
So whether I'm a leader or not, whether I influence other people or not, I want to be a part of what they're doing, what concerns them, the discussions that are going on, the decisions that need to be made.
Yeah, I like that. For me, I've always voted. I think there may have been a random election here or there that I didn't. I'll admit, with you, there have been many times that I've voted third party because of a dissatisfaction with the two-party system. I will say individually, and I'm not sure how much of this relates to my Christian faith, but I think a little bit actually. I've been more and more challenged about how much I should vote, because I feel like there are a number of people that are trying to stop others from voting. That there has been some level of voter suppression. And I know, again, much like all of this, there's some partisan kind of overtones to that, and I don't want to walk down that road.
Yet.
But yeah.
Save it.
I think throughout history, you have to say that there have definitely been people that have been, held back from voting. And when I think of that, and when I think of myself as a white male, where that has never been the case, to somehow not vote, I just don't think I can do that anymore. To think of women and people of color that had to work so hard in order to get a vote, I just had one freely given to me. That's really challenged me in the last several years. And so, yeah, I can't see myself not voting at this point, almost out of kind of respect for some of the challenges that others have faced. And that, I'll admit, that's been totally new for me. Yeah. All right, more or less, we like the vote. More or less. Kind of in that direction. Where does that then go from there? Because I think part of the problem that we hear is that Christians have become too political. So it's more than just Christians voting. It has become Christians endorsing candidates, running for office, throwing their weight behind one party over another. Like, how did we get here? And is there a line there that we need to do a better job with?
Yeah. Well, I mean, how did we get here? Political candidates recognize you can leverage anything. Anything is fair game. Love and politics, or love and war. No, where's politics come in? Yeah, so, anybody who can possibly convince you that in order to be a good Christian, you need to vote in this particular way, whether it's true or not, you'd almost say you're not trying. There's that old sports adage, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. And if you're a politician and you're not trying to leverage absolutely everything you can into votes, then I suppose you're not trying. And it would be our job to see through that, which, I don't know, we usually fail at, right? We should, but P.T. Barnum had a saying about that too.
Yeah. I agree. And honestly, from a historical standpoint, depending on how you read Constantine's conversion, that gets to that, right? That either he converted because he had a real encounter with Jesus and became a believer, and that is awesome and great.
Right.
Or many
he
think
took the political climate and took the inevitable, well, everybody's turning Christian, I guess I better do that too.
And now they're part of my army and they're my biggest backers and da-da-da-da-da, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's,
I wasn't there though, so I don't,
Well-
that one I don't know.
You missed that? Were you there for that one, Keith?
No. I was born right after.
Right on the other side. Excellent. About 1,700 years ago. Very good.
Yeah. Part of what you asked is, should Christians be in politics? Should Christians hold political office? And I'd say, sure.
Yeah?
If they feel that's what they're interested in, and God's leading them in that direction, sure. Why not? I mean, I'd say that about most any job.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're talking about maybe national presidential politics, but we also need to talk about local politics, how things work here. So yeah, I can see a part of that. I don't like being manipulated by big political systems, but I know that's how the world works. I mean, ads are influencing me all the time. What to buy, how to live, how to dress, all that kind of stuff. So that's a part of the air we breathe.
Which is dangerous right now, too.
Yeah. So I am reluctant as a pastor, or to listen to a pastor who tells me how to vote.
Yeah, so there's an interesting wrinkle there.
That would be a danger line for me. And when I was in Congo, the group of churches I worked with, the president for many years was from that area, and he gave gifts to people, he gave gifts to churches, he was one of them, and so he sort of belonged. And when he finally was no longer in power, there was a big discussion in the church. Did we support him too much? When we've seen some of the things that he did that were not good, is God telling us that we should never do that again in that same way?
Yeah.
We support leaders, but not like we supported that person. So that was an interesting discussion within the church.
Yeah. Wow, that's fascinating. And I think that's there's some parallel conversations to that going on in our time as well. Those of you that know me know I lived in Mexico for a little bit of time, and so I experienced something a little bit similar. I was there for one of the elections as well, and it was fascinating to be in a country outside of the United States and to see the gift giving. The bribery is what I saw where I happen to be, and therefore, the influence that came out of that. Again, in America, at least where I've been, like, no one has bribed me, but they get back to your question of, like, someone has clearly manipulated me, or I can't remember the word that you used, leveraged. Clearly, there are politicians that have tried to leverage me in my position. They just didn't, give me a PlayStation, which is maybe they should have.
If you want Bill's vote,
Right.
PlayStation.
There you
It'll
go.
cost you.
The 5, though, please. That's.
Oh yeah, I guess you're probably gonna use one old one.
Right.
Yeah. Not going for that. Not even local.
not even a local.
Maybe one of the judge positions. I don't
There,
know.
yeah, there you go. So you think Christians can and should run for office? I admit I have always struggled with that. I really, really have, and I have because I have thought about running for office, and I've always wondered if I would be able to separate my faith from my political office. And I think that's actually one of the questions that really drives people right now. Someone who takes their faith seriously, how could they not let that influence part of their political process, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, it should. I think I probably delivered a sermon on that before. Shouldn't it influence every single aspect of your life? Maybe the question, though, is that really a problem? I mean, maybe if you're going to run, maybe our country would be better if people were actually driven by their religious conscience. Now I'm starting to question my own. Like we're all of one mind there.
Right, yes. The
Now,
hive mind.
I'd actually, when I've thought about what I want a strong Christian in office, and being real open about that, and I've seen Christians lead in a lot of different ways that aren't so good within the church, not politically. I mean, we have lots of division within the church over the history and within our country in the U.S. I think we lead for denominations and divisions among Christians. So why do I think that if someone's a Christian, they're going to be a better leader than a non-Christian? I don't assume that, but I would assume that a Christian going into office would pray, would seek to know, seek to understand where God is leading, not just in their own thoughts, but by talking to other Christian people, because there's going to be diversity of opinion.
I like where you're going with that. That a Christian actually would intentionally seek out more diversity because a Christian would know the diversity within the faith already. That's a cool thought. I'm not sure it works that way, unfortunately, but yeah, I like that a lot.
I guess the thing that I maybe struggle with most is, I'm retired military, so the rule is, well, you're there to protect the Constitution, but not really enjoy all the benefits of the Constitution, right? So I can say this now, I was not a big fan of Bill Clinton when he was in office. I had a lot of problems with a lot of stuff that he did, but he's a commander-in-chief.
Sure.
So I was literally not allowed to say anything negative about anyone in the chain of command. I had some things to say. I was listening to Bush's inauguration. So he steps down, and I let out a string of profanity that still is floating over Indiana. Is that the Christmas Story line? But anyway, yeah. So my point is, I lived with not being able to be political, not to be able to take political stances. So it's pretty easy for me to say, or lean toward anyway, no, Christians should not be political at all. You have in the hierarchy of things that are important to you, what's your goal? To make political points, to win political arguments, to get this candidate elected, to get this agenda put forward, or to win people for Jesus. It's too easy to lose track of that. People want to express themselves tons of different ways politically. I should have the right, and right there you lose me. I should have the right to, as a Christian, we're way too about our rights in this country. We're just raised that way. We're programmed to think of our rights, and I don't think the Christian walk is supposed to be about that. So for me, it's pretty easy to justify giving it up, I guess.
But there's also, I hear what you're saying, and I understand what you're saying. We also talk about public servants, and that very much comes out of faith. It comes out of Christian faith that said that in some ways we are supposed to serve. Is there any, I think there's some truth in that. It's going to be flawed. It's not going to work 100%, maybe not even 50%. But I think there's a place for us to serve, not just in church, not just in winning people to Christ, but for the whole of life. And so, listening to you, I think that limits what we see as our role as Christian people.
So if you're gifted as a leader, that's how you feel you should serve.
That's one place you could serve.
Yeah.
Not the only place you could serve.
Sure. Well, yeah.
Well, but if you're, as I understand what you're saying, then, if you're going to serve and you have a gift of leadership, but you're listening to me and I'm saying don't enter politics, then you're getting one hand tied behind your back and you're cutting yourself short of a gift. Is that fair?
It's a good question.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah. When you put it that way, interesting. I don't know.
Since we're all pastors, I would not want to say to other people, because they look to me, they listen to me at a certain amount, to have me say, I don't think as a Christian we should be part of government, because our full focus needs to be on bringing people to Christ. Yeah, I would say that's more than one hand behind the back. That's really saying there's only one part of Christian life.
I see where you're going with that. Yep. Well, I mean, it gets to the probably made up Luther quote, about if you're a shoemaker, then be a shoemaker to the best of your ability. That's hopefully, I hope Luther said something like that, because I really like that quote, but we're not sure that he did. For me, again, it gets into what actually I think is part of the challenge for our time right now. Because it has become so partisan, because it has become so divisive, because it has become so political. I struggle with how we navigate the divide we now have. Could a Christian, I think, faithfully serve and do that well? I always grew up thinking yes, absolutely. And I admit I'm at a point now where I worry whether or not that would be able to happen, because I think you would get sucked into the partisan nature of, again, particularly America, and I'm not sure either the Congo or Mexico would do it better, but where we are right now, like, I don't know that we'd be able to. And I find that frustrating on so many different levels. One of the things you're talking, well, I think both of you guys are talking about, just in terms of being able to express your own opinion, and share that. We should be able to, right? And then, as the three of us as pastors, if we do that, and say if we do that from the pulpit, then wow, that's something else entirely. Yeah. Leonardo DiCaprio does that, picking up an Oscar, and people get all, up in arms about that. And I think to myself, well, he's just expressing his opinion, but I just wanted to watch you win your Oscar. I didn't necessarily, come here for that. It's the same with us in this position, and how do we engage in that? How do we engage in politics? Particularly in a time when it just seems that it's impossible to do that without being drawn into just a partisan debate.
That's an excellent question. Yeah. I guess I have to acknowledge, even though I'm very leery of Christians entering politics, but the obvious question is, what's the alternative? Right? So what we need is strictly atheists.
Yes,
anybody
there you
but
go.
A Christian.
Perfect. Yep.
Anybody but a Christian. That really doesn't seem to be a very good answer either. So I'll give you that.
Very good. Well, and it gets to, again, I don't know, again, just from a reality standpoint, the idea of, again, a huge, diverse array of Christians engaging in politics. One would think that they would do that really well, that would be a really cool thing. to for society to watch and see. Kind of like what, honestly, what we're trying to do here a little bit, where we've got some difference of thought, difference of opinion, but at the end of the day, we're all going to be fine and drink a beverage together. I'm not sure what beverage. I think you're a wine guy.
Water guy.
Water guy. We'll turn that into wine. That'll be good. That'll be perfect. So, yeah, that would be cool. But again, that's not what we're seeing, right? I mean, right now we're seeing anything but that. And just to name names, not all the Republicans are Christians, and not all the Democrats are pagans. And yet somehow, boy, those two sides right now, like,
Yeah.
there is a chasm between them, and it seems impossible to cross.
It's being perpetuated like that.
Yeah.
You know, I just recently talked about, we've got the way to argue, or debate, if you want to call it that, being modeled for us by children.
Yes.
My goodness, it's embarrassing. I couldn't even watch that. Argument, I had a college class. Argument is supposed to be two people working together to find the best solution to a proposed problem. I can't see a shred of that in the world today. Argument is all about winning.
Yes.
And I just have to ask, I mean, how are you defining winning? Being the last one talking? Because you've convinced no one who didn't already agree with you to begin with. But that just gets, and this is not, my gosh, this is not new. I mean, I think people are acting like this isn't even necessarily a new low. Lori and I were just watching Jeopardy a little while ago that was just quoting a lot of like physical broken noses and that kind of stuff going on in Congress. So people have had violent spirited discussions.
Anyone who's seen Hamilton the musical knows, that does not end well for him, right? The vice president shot him. Like, that's, generally frowned upon, I think.
Well, dueling, yeah.
Yeah.
We've cut down a lot on dueling.
We have. Maybe, no. Very good.
Oh, could sell a lot of tickets to it, though.
Yeah, they could do. So how do we engage in that? How do we model something better? How do we do something in a time and a place? Where if it's not a new low, it is as low as it has ever been. How can we model something better? And if we can answer that.
Well, maybe this right here. We're not going to agree on everything. We haven't agreed on everything. And yet, and we've had a number of arguments, and I not only don't hate you, I still love you. When you're committed to a relationship, my gosh, if you've done marriage counseling ever, one of the first things you have to convince people of is the goal is not to win all the arguments with your wife. You will absolutely lose in doing that. We need to set what our goals actually are. And if it's simply to win, ironically, you will lose.
Yeah. And from a faith-based standpoint, from a Jesus follower standpoint, I seem to recall him saying something about that, right? That if those who try to win in this world are going to lose it, and those that are willing to lose everything, they gain it all. It's a terrible reading of it. That was my Bible translation of it. I'm not sure.
So my mind goes to it, the time in Congo when I was pretty discouraged about what I was doing there, and about maybe it wasn't a good fit for me. And I'd been there a long time. And a friend of mine who had actually started in Congo with me, and then he came back for projects. We were traveling together, and just the two of us in a truck. I was sort of explaining it, and he says, "Keith, I think we couldn't have asked for a better person to be here right now. It was during the time of war. You're even. You listen to people. You're helping keeping the connection with the church." But, Keith, you need to get rid of the idea that you're always going to get everything right. It's never going to happen that way. You're going to be wrong. You're going to mess up sometimes. And, okay, that was a word of grace to me then. That was an important thing for me to hear.
Yeah.
But I think of that in church. And I think of that in politics. I mean, in politics, we would work to try to find something that works. Might be a lot the way I'm thinking, or it might not be as much the way I'm thinking. But we try to go forward. And 20 years later, we might look back and say, well, I wish we had tweaked that a little bit differently. Or I wish we hadn't done that at all. But that's life. And that's politics. If I go into politics, I have to realize that it's not going to be any different. I'm not going to get to utopia any better than I do in the church or in my personal life. But I have a hope that God is leading me in His direction, and that God also has a future that's better than I can make myself.
I heard, I can't even remember the source now. Somebody had commented recently on, I think it was mostly a racial injustice kind of issue. We should have this fixed by now. We should have had this fixed by now. And, you know, should we be better?
Yeah.
Can we do better?
Sure.
Absolutely. I don't want to cut that down at all. But that statement to me just rang of, we can create a heaven on earth, you know, that it's possible that we can get everything right. And we just can't. We won't. Unrealistic expectations. And I think somebody who's lived in the Congo, I'm just going to say, you probably have a little bit different perspective of what we've got going on today. Mexico, the same. I was in Guatemala during an election, and the two candidates were a general whose motto was strong hand, and a drug dealer, really, a shaman. These are the choices.
Yeah.
And the Guatemalans had completely accepted long ago that whoever wins will become fabulously rich through just taking bribes and stealing from the government, and then disappear somewhere.
Yeah.
And yet they're just resigned to it. We can go, as bad as things are, we can go so much lower, people, so much lower. And yet, we'll never go that high. We'll never go as high as people somehow expect us to do. I think managing your expectations would probably help us all quite a bit.
From that standpoint, maybe one of the best things that people of faith can actually bring to the political conversation is to use some good old Christian language, that we are all sinners. We have all fallen short of God's standard. We've all made mistakes. And maybe if we admit that and lead from that, you know, begin a conversation with that first and foremost, maybe that opens us up to a different conversation. Instead of, hey, I've got the right answer, hey, I'm walking with Jesus, I got this all nailed. Instead, hey, I'm walking with Jesus, and therefore I know where I am. I know my flaws. I know where I'm at. Maybe that just changes the dynamic of where we begin.
When we were both talking about observing from in other countries, you two, all three of us. Maybe part of our angst is that we have some kind of a voice, we have some kind of role in government, because for most of history, there's not been an ordinary person place in government.
Yeah, that's true.
There's been kings and emperors, there's been fiefdoms, we would have been serfs.
Right.
Or we might have been priests, which would have given us certain kinds of...
We would have been all right. We would have been in.
But then there would have been the prophets that would have said, "You're not all right."
That's right. That's right.
But maybe you just look at the Old Testament or the New Testament. The New Testament, Jesus and all the books of the Bible or of the New Testament were written in people as a part of an empire, but not as citizens of the empire in general.
Right, not even citizens.
Yeah.
Much less upstanding citizens.
Yeah.
Not even
They
to the
didn't have
rank
a
of
voice.
citizen.
They didn't have a voice.
Yeah.
And, through European history, if you travel in Europe, what do you look at? Castles. Or large cathedrals. But those weren't built during any time when an ordinary person had any influence.
Yeah.
You might have done some work in there, but so now we're sort of in a unique position in history where we can say something, we can vote on something, we can actually be a part of government, when we wouldn't have had that choice before. So how do we live our faith? How do we figure that out right now?
Yeah. Mm. Well, on that question, I think we should end. That's profound stuff. Anything else that we haven't touched on? I think we solved it all. We're good. Nailed it. Perfect. Good. Well, thank you so much for being a part of this. Again, this was our very first one. We are hoping that we get a little feedback. We'll have different groups and different panels. We've already got something that we're set up for next week as well. But any advice or any feedback that you can give us before that, we'll try and bring on into this as well. Unless, of course, the advice is that we should never have Broncos fans again. Then, I'm sorry. Everyone's
everywhere.
welcome. You're everywhere. I was going to say everyone's
I
welcome.
get like secret sign. I won't tell you what the secret sign is, but I get that stuff every once in a while. Somebody will give me the, hey. Oh, I give it away.
You did. There you go. There you go. Keith, thank you so much. It's so good to see you. Oh, my gosh. Oh, instead of just on the screen, but to be here in person. Thank you. And thank you for doing that. Mike, good to see you.
My pleasure.
Yes. I've seen you once or twice. So there you go. And to all of you watching, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you back here next week. Bye-bye.